All right. I got my guy Chris, aka Time, here. If you want, introduce yourself to the camera.
Yeah, my name's Chris, Time Steele, from Denver, born in Aurora, Nutty Northside. And yeah, happy to be with Tully.
Hell yeah. All right, so with this conversation, what we try to do is ask creative questions about people that are sort of creative entrepreneurs that have existed in various creative spaces, right? So let's start in Denver. Like, where did you grow up? In what era? You know, what, 80s, 90s?
Yeah. Yeah, so I grew up in the 90s in North Denver. I was born in Aurora and just grew up playing basketball. Got into hip hop at a young age, listening to NWA. And then when the And One mixtapes came out, you know, they were giving them out at Foot Locker, like
Yeah.
on VHS. I got one of the And One mixtapes, and I heard
The Professor.
Yeah. Well, this was even like before Professor, I think. This was like when you had Future and Skip to My Lou.
Hell yeah.
Before Ray for Austin went to the Bucks.
Yep.
And had her Do It Now by Mos Def and Busta Rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't really know about the underground scene yet, and that just blew my whole world open.
Mm-hmm.
And just got me deeper into art and
Yeah.
all the different connections it has.
So that's where it started for you, was stumbling into a Foot Locker and one mixtape, and boom, Mos Def.
Yep.
What was the first place you played a show at?
First place was actually on Colfax at the Sports Field Rocks.
Okay.
It was right next to Saturdays on East Colfax.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, first show, I was probably 16, so I needed a performer's license from City of Denver to even do it, and that was with Awareness.
Yeah.
Even back then, and yeah, we just did our first show there, and there was like all, you know, the older shows, like they had like 20 people on the bill just to bring people. Yeah, that was our introduction into like the scene and everything.
Who were you working with early on? You said Awareness. He's kind of like your producer.
Yeah, he's like my producer, my brother, like from Dirty Lab. And I was wearing a Talib Kweli shirt in high school, and his cousin was in my class, and he was like, "I like Kweli.
Yeah.
You should meet my cousin. He makes beats." And then that's just how it opened up. Then I heard Awareness's beats, and like he reminded me of Premier, sampled a lot of classical music.
Yep.
And yeah, it just opened up from there, because before I was just recording like on a Windows mic.
Yeah.
At my house, you know, stealing beats from LL Cool J and like Necro and stuff like that.
Yeah. Who were you guys working with, or what artists were in your peripheral early on?
Yeah, so early on in our peripheral, like locally.
Yeah, locally. Like who were the artists you were messing with?
Yeah, so locally there was always like, this was like the battle era, so there was battles all the time, and I remember I saw Bugaboo.
Okay.
I knew them from back in the day, and Matt Fly Jedi worked at Twisted Soul on Colfax.
Yep.
And then that was connected to Breakdown Books. I used to do shows down there. So I was this young kid, and I was bothering him all the time, asking him like about bars and how to write. And I met Damien and Mike Word, and yeah, I just like, those guys were really just kind of listened to me just rant and nerd out about rap, and then just kind of like tolerated me and gave me Scribble Jam tapes, and just got me more into the culture.
How old were you when you guys put out your first project? Whether it was Time or as Calm?
Yeah, so 16. So I released 2 albums in high school.
Wow.
And yeah, we were just always working on stuff. We had this EP called Meditation to Thought. And that was with Points, who used to be in Dirty Lab too. And yeah, we were just recording and just learning about stuff. And I think it was good because to get your expectations shattered at a young age is so handy
Yeah.
because like you probably had this feeling too, like when you made your first song and you're about to release your first thing, you're like, we're about to blow up tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
We're
yeah.
about to like
It's about to happen
this is
for
gonna be
us.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens, like because no one cares, like, and it's
Yeah.
okay, it's all right because you gotta do the work, you got like
Mhm.
there's levels, things don't work like that. And I meet a lot of older artists who like maybe going through a midlife crisis or like life got to them or getting back to it, and they hit that in their 40s and it devastates them.
Yeah. Wrecked
So
them.
yeah, I was really grateful that that just happened at a young age because it taught me that I just love this art form.
And then as you started putting projects out, what were some of the iconic shows early on that you guys did that you remember?
Yeah. So as we started putting stuff out, I remember we opened up for the Shapeshifters,
Uh huh.
and Exist Stereo showed tons of love.
Yep.
Like, and as a young artist, like someone still in high school, and for an artist who was more established to show love, like meant a lot.
Yeah.
And it was more validating. It gave you more courage to express yourself, not to conform to what you think people like, but just really grow into yourself as an artist. So yeah, then we went out to LA and we did some shows with Mickey Avalon and Exist before that. You were out there too,
Yeah, that was
right?
the one.
Yeah. Yeah, you were the
That
one
was
that
that tour that
connected.
we
Yeah.
did.
It was the Temple Bar, right?
Temple Bar in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Shout out to Santa Monica.
Yeah. And those were just good experiences, like to get out of Colorado and go
Yeah.
to Cali. And
How old were you at the time?
I think I was like barely 18.
Barely 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember like touring a lot with you and just growing from that and just,
Yeah.
you
I,
know,
I remember you being super dope, but really young. And
yeah.
I remember watching you progress and grow throughout your career. And then it seemed like as you're doing shows, it was always just part of who you are and what you've done over the years. But I feel like from a outsider's perspective, your creative quest has evolved over time,
Yeah.
right? Like it seems, and if you want to get into some of that, like early on, it was about playing shows and recording raps, but then there was the alien conventions, and there was you going to university,
Yeah.
eventually becoming, working at the college.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that being a creative hip hop guy, like some of the paths you ended up running down because of that?
Yeah. So like my early forms was like when I was 13, I was doing these hoops and hip hop tournaments.
Hmm.
So we do MC battles, and then I was
Do you still play
working.
basketball?
Oh yeah,
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
I love basketball. Yeah, still a big part of my
So
life.
fucking with the Nuggets right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, I know, killing it. Well,
Uh,
except the Timberwolves, but
that's
we'll
one
come
thing we
back.
have to figure out.
We'll come back. We were just playing with their mind.
Yeah.
So like I had connected with Main Flow from Wanna Battle when I was like 13.
Hmm.
And he was working with High Tech and Quali. And then I had met the Zulu Nation, and they were down with doing the hoops and hip hop tournaments. So I was
Hmm.
just learning more about the culture at that time. And that's when I met Dead Prez, and they came out here to show a documentary about Mumia Abu Jamal. And like this started just to hit me more to like the inter the intertwining between hip hop and politics and like forms of liberation.
Hmm.
So I had just started to grow into that more
Yeah.
and like understand that more when I learned more about history and I was around more artists. So that was kind of like a big change.
Didn't you get to know Common and do some work with him and his dad also?
Yeah. So Awareness was working at 7-Eleven off of Colfax, and his dad, Common's dad, lived across the street, and
Yeah.
he came in. And then I was there one day getting coffee, and he's like, I'm reading about my son. And then I was like, who's your son? And he said, Common. And his dad does like raps at the end of every album.
Yeah.
So I knew all his dad's lyrics, and he was like, "You're like a real fan," and
Yeah.
he let me come over to his house and like see the memorabilia. And Lonnie, rest in peace. Lonnie was like a grandpa that like I never had
Yeah.
on my mom's side. He was like a mentor and just like a wonderful person I learned from. And then he was even on one of my albums too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we helped record his rap for The Dreamer, The Believer.
Yeah.
And then we were able to do his last poem that he recorded, which was Little Chicago Boy,
Wow.
which was an honor to do.
Uh-huh.
And that was on Common's Black America again.
That's dope.
And yeah, Common was like just a great person to be around and learn from too.
And so you're meeting a lot of different artists and intertwining it. What informed the decision to move on to university and the things that you chose there in that path?
Yeah. So like I think you and me kind of have like a similar background, like a working class background.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I didn't go to college out of high school. I was just washing pots at Rhodes Hospital. I was a custodian, and then I was driving forklifts. And what's wild is Nathaniel Ratliff was driving forklifts with us,
That's tight.
and at the same
All
time,
these weird like interjunctions you've had with various people.
yeah. So he was like, yeah, I make music, come over after when like we would always just talk about music and doo-wop and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got hired to do snow removal and landscaping at Regis. And if you work there full time, they pay your tuition.
Yeah.
So that's really what got me into like college and like learning and expanding my mind and learning more.
That's dope that a lot of people don't know is there's so many like situations that you can work your way into something that you otherwise wouldn't expect to be able to do.
Yeah.
Like being, working for the college, doing snow removal, and that afforded you the opportunity for a free education,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I got my bachelor's and then I got my master's and then I actually became a professor at
Yeah.
Regis, which was just totally mind blowing. Like, yeah, from like, the person that the teachers would say, "Don't break my plant when you move my desk," to like being a professor. Like, so it was amazing.
That's crazy, yeah.
Got to learn about writing, scholarship, sources, like laying out things, and it was really good.
Being somebody that has pursued knowledge, right? How is it different going from, seeking out your own means to solve these problems to getting a formal education and almost becoming the person from outside of the system that's educating these kids?
I guess like learning that.
Like I would imagine like you would have a skewed perspective on how to inform the kids or how to give them instruction because you came from outside of that whole
Yeah.
ideology, and then you go to college, you become a professor, and sure, there's the textbook of how you're supposed to do it, but then you come from this other way,
Yeah. Well, no, that was really where like I found a big riff in teaching.
Oh, okay.
So I did feel like I had a trouble with that because there was like a big class difference I felt with the students I was teaching. Like they went to private schools, they stayed in dorms. Like I never had that experience. So I didn't really know how to relate in that way to where the other professors, most of them, they went to private school, they were in dorms, they were teacher assistants, and
They
then they were
understood the
professors.
experience.
They had PhDs. Like they had been through the same system.
Yeah.
So it's different for me, but it was probably helpful for the students because it was different. But I found myself just using hip hop all the time.
Sure.
When I taught sociology, I'd have them write like a battle rap between Weber and Durkheim and Marx
Yeah.
or something.
Yep.
And like the kids have fun with it. And I always went back to hip hop.
So it seems like the hip hop culture informed your your teaching style.
Yeah, and it informed actually like my interest in history because when I was in high school, like I was just in public schools and it was just like a patriotic propaganda of a history that I learned. And I was listening to Dead Prez at the time, and they were talking about Nat Turner. And I asked my teacher, and he was like, that's just hip hop. Like, there's no Nat Turner." So then I went to the library, and the librarian was into it. So she got me actually books on slave revolts, Nat Turner. And I
All
was
the
like,
stuff.
wait, like, this is different. My history teachers just dismissed this.
Yeah.
Now, Dead Prez, like, what they're saying is adding up.
Yeah.
What hip hop is saying is adding up. So then it started to break back these layers for me.
Wow.
And then I would try to take that into the college. Like, we're going to listen to Dead Prez, or we're going to listen to A Song for Asada by Common and learn about not just Tupac, but like his godmother,
Yeah.
and Asada Shakur, and like why did she have to flee to Cuba? Why did she have to get asylum? you know, and it breaks open these histories.
Yeah, and almost use that truth, like tell the students, poke holes in it, and then when they do the deep dive, they can see that these
Yeah.
things are true, just just told in the poetic way.
And that's like your book, your new book. You say hip hop is an art form of truth telling. Like
Yeah,
that's an
absolutely.
aspect of it. So yeah, like it's like this way of conveying like terabytes, yottabytes of knowledge come from hip hop and lyrics. Like you convey a lot of info at once.
I feel like everybody's truth differs kind of. Like my truth can be different than your truth, but we observed the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's important to develop your truth, listen to other people's truth, and then when those messages are conveyed to other people, those people need to go and figure it out, right? Like Dead Prez's truth is going to be different because the way they receive that information than this person.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if we're talking about like Timothy Leary or Robin Anton Wilson, reality tunnels. Like we have different reality tunnels that we're in
Yeah,
because of ideology.
absolutely.
But yeah, like there are truths like that. The Philly PD bomb move in 1985,
Yeah,
and like killed a bunch of people because they were black liberationists. But yeah, like
and
then
that's a
you
fact.
yeah, but then you get into these reality tunnels, and like that's interesting, and that's where art is so helpful because it breaks down these like algorithms that are built up
Hmm.
by by society. Like I was in this algorithm of a public school history,
Yep.
and that got shattered through hip hop, critical thinking,
Yeah.
learning, and art. And that's like the power of art. It like
Yeah.
shatters paradigms, and that's why I
Absolutely.
love art.
So let's pause there for a second. While you were working at the college, and then ultimately going to school at the college and eventually becoming a professor, were you also still creating new projects, new music?
Yeah, like I haven't stopped since high school. Like I have like 17 official albums. I have
Wow.
18 on Friday,
Yep.
and then I have last year I did 10 mixtapes, which was 100 songs.
Wow.
So that's another 10 albums.
Yep.
And I did the Hydra project like in 2012, which was 13 albums in a year. So I've been releasing since like 2003,
Mm-hmm.
and now I feel like the game has changed to where you need to release more.
Yeah.
So now used to be like one album a year,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're looking at 4 albums a year.
So 20 plus years in the game. Early on, like you had said, your first album, you did it, you got it out, and you thought, okay, I'm famous now, right? And then that didn't happen, and in the way that you thought it would. You end up going, working your way through college and making music the whole time, and diving down reality tunnels and sorting through all this stuff. Um, have you continued to use the music that you're making to inform the path, or like what are you doing it for right now?
Yeah,
Like, are you still trying to be famous, or are you doing something else?
yeah. So I learned that like either way, I'm gonna be creating,
Yeah.
but I'm intentional with my creation of music, and I'm also over the years I've learned more about the business of it
Hmm.
and how to promote yourself and more of like not like a starving artist way, but like
Yeah.
I have a goal where I like would like to see progression, and
Progression as the art itself.
yeah,
Yeah.
as the art itself, but also the business of it. Like
Yep.
my goal would be to live off of art.
Hmm.
That's a lot of people's goals, but either way, it's like something that I would do either way.
I think, and this is going to flip it on its head a little bit. People often want to live off their art, but they're so jaded in that I have to live off of this record that I've made, right? Or I have to become a professional muralist. And I think that if you're living life as an artist, the art of living becomes relevant,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And so you can be a creative, like you can exist creatively, and that can inform the way that you maneuver the world, right? Like when I was trying to be a musician and it was fun, I traveled the world, did a lot of things I wouldn't have done had I not done that. But then that experience informed me in my promoting abilities. And then I parlayed the promoting thing into working at bars. And I creatively approached my work at the bar, along mixed with hard work, into managing multiple nightclubs, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like you can live off of your art, but the way to do that is by living in an artistic way, like being creative in how you live life.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess like to get away from that question is more like what I'm focused on is pushing art and creating
Yeah.
art and open to those opportunities. But also I'm more interested in legacy
Mm-hmm.
than currency at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And like creating an archive of art for other artists to be
Mm-hmm.
informed on and like contributing, because if I could live off of art with some cheesy commercial song, like you said, I wouldn't be fulfilled. So like I'm interested in creating like archives of good
Well,
art.
and I guess what I'm another way that I'm saying it is I feel like you have been living off of art,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like you were trying to have money to get in the studio and put projects out, so you took a job that you wouldn't have otherwise taken, right?
Yeah.
And that job somehow turned into an opportunity for you to go to college, right? Which then you became a professor and did a bunch of other shit, right? But all of that was because you were living creatively. You were open to the creative opportunities life was presenting to you. Therefore, you've been able to consecutively put out albums for 20 plus years, which is incredible, right? Most quote unquote artists that were signed to a label haven't been able to do that, right? They haven't been able to have the creative prowess to exist in that field that long.
Yeah.
And so I only bring it up this way because I feel like that's what you've done is you've lived a very creative life, and you've made sure that creativity and the business along with it has existed the whole time.
Yeah. No, that is, thank you for saying that. It's true. Yeah, like fits in like that.
Hmm.
Um,
I've watched you from afar and up close over the years, and it's been inspirational and aspirational to see you go through these different junctures in life, from being that the young kid that was just in the back that was rapping better than everybody, to this kid that was fully committed, to someone that was working his way through school but still constantly putting out these things because they meant something, right?
yeah.
And that's dope.
Well, I got a question for you then.
Yeah, what's
Through
up?
this. So like I'm really interested in alchemy. So
Okay.
like kind of like how this you made this drink, you know, like you did dissolution, you took it apart, you put the pieces back together, they
Hmm.
coagulate back together. So like I seen you from when you were standard issue,
Yeah, way back.
and yeah, and when you were rapping, and then you were roughneck on the fields.
Parallel.
Yeah, you were doing this, and then you went back to music again. You were touring, and then you got into the clubs. So like, what was your alchemy that you were like, I have a story to tell, and I deserve to be able to tell that story, and I deserve to write it, and I deserve to release it. How did you get to that commitment to yourself?
I come from a really complicated and harsh upbringing, right? My dad died in jail, mom, single parent, 5 kids, 23. And there was a lot of struggle. And so we had to kind of thug through some stuff. And through that, I found the only way I would get through hard things was by helping people, pushing them forward. And at every juncture, it seems to have gone back to that, right? Um, when I was rapping, it was because I wanted to be in a group and help the group. When I parlayed that into promoting, it's because I wanted to help curate a culture, right? I wanted to help create these events that meant something for people to consume and enjoy. And then on to me running all of those clubs. I worked hard and learned the system, partly so that I could survive off of it, but partly because it was so important for me to create those moments for people to celebrate their lives. And as time has progressed, I went through drug problems. I got out of drug problems. Um, all the while, I've always had this urge to serve people, and I think the best things come from that, from servitude. Like if you look at the great, the great writers that dating back to Egypt, like the real alchemists, right? Those
Yeah.
guys, they were trying to serve a greater cause. They were trying to serve humanity, and they were giving this information as truths that could drive and steer you to a place beyond your wildest dreams, right? That's what alchemy is. It's not about turning a rock into gold. It's about the human experience being golden, right? And
Yeah.
how do you do that? How do you take this time you have, and how do you transmorph it into something that everybody can experience and enjoy and grow from? Servitude.
Yeah.
The great, the greatest alchemists ever they served humanity.
Yeah.
And I think back to your question, my intention with this podcast, with my time at the club, with these ice cream shops that I opened, or that me and my wife opened, it's all in the nature of serving people. Like I also am a fan of alchemy, and am a fan of history, and right now I'm very compelled with yoga, right? And not so much the Lululemon side of things, but like the tradition that dates back 10,000 years,
Yeah.
and how that came to be, through the breathing and different processes and connections and so on. So yeah, I think service to others has informed everything I've done. I wrote the books because I started driving for Lyft during COVID, and I found myself in cars with people that had problems, whether it was where a good restaurant was, or they were working 3 jobs, barely surviving, and had kids at home.
Yeah.
I had some answers. I had some at least some directions I could push them in. So I started giving that advice, or at least giving what information and knowledge I've attained over the years, and people started getting back to me like, yo, that changed my life. Like, you fucking helped me.
Yeah.
And so the book, the first one, Quiet Lessons, was just like a retelling of my life because I didn't know how else to start. So I was like, fuck it, let's just start there. And then the next book, the Unleashing the Hustle, is it's in the same vein. Like I want people to know that life can be fun, and you can hustle your way through everything and enjoy it. And as long as you're serving people or the experience, you're going to succeed in some way, shape, or form. You might trip and end up with a double degree, or you might end up running the biggest club conglomerate in a city, or whatever, however you get there. But as long as you're serving people,
Yeah.
so.
No, yeah, no, I agree. Like, if you look at like Charles Darwin, and he was talking about the survival of the fittest, and then you had his friend Peter Kropotkin. He was looking at it, and they were saying like it's not about fittest isn't like strongest, or if it is strongest, he redefined strongest as cooperation. So like the animals and the species that are still alive aren't the ones that fight the best. They're the ones that can cohabitate and cooperate. And that's what I always,
Organize themselves in a way
yeah,
that drives the experience forward.
yeah, so they can work together and not destroy a habitat. And that's why these things are here. And that's one thing that I've always loved about hip hop is like it came from this struggle of oppression, and then it was this art form of liberation because it was the Black Spades, and it went to the Zulu Nation and Africa Bambaataa and all them, and they came together with community events. And then they came together with this art form, and that's something that
Because they were serving, like they
Yeah.
it was a service to others, and then it grew into some other things, and all of those things were necessary for it to become what it is now.
Yeah, and it, it was like informed from the Panthers, and then the Young Lords, and that's why I'm really interested in like mutual aid groups and anarchist groups and disaster relief and all those. I've
Yeah.
written about those before.
I was just talking with a homie when he was younger. He had had things going on and wanted to get out of where he was at. And he ended up joining AmeriCorps,
Oh, wow.
and that's essentially like a organization designed to go and help people that are in trouble, whether it's low income people, disaster relief. But they basically pay for you to travel the world or travel the country to help people. It's a really cool idea. that would have been something I would have done had I known that existed, but I didn't, or I didn't realize it was something I could have done.
Yeah.
It's still an interesting thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you no longer at the university, or what are you doing these days?
Yeah, no, I'm no longer at the university. I got out of teaching. I didn't have a PhD, so like I was hitting blocks there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been, yeah, just making music and writing, and then I've been working for this record label, Emergency Hearts,
Yeah.
and they're more of like a new age goth, but they also do like hip hop stuff too.
Yeah.
And I help with promotion with them and help connect with other artists, and that's the main thing we work on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What books are you reading? I bring this up. You were talking about Darwin, and I love diving down those rabbit holes. A book that I've consumed recently was the Red Book, right?
About Young?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Bro, that was like
Going in
it went deep. We went deep. I didn't realize we were going that deep.
That's deep. Yeah, it's individuation.
Bro.
And like when he was going through the active imagination.
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Young is deep in archetypes. Yeah.
It was very informative. What was interesting to learn is that book, he never released it, right? They released it after he died. But he wrote most of that. He wrote that book way before he had really become Jung, right? Carl Jung. And he
did all the
says,
paintings too, right?
huh?
He did all the paintings.
He did lots of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
But he said that book, the experience of putting that material together, is what informed everything else he did in his career. So like the Carl Jung that we know and the one that changed psychology for what it is today, it only existed through him going inward and creating this hyper complicated story about,
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, what books are you reading? Do you have anything?
I've been reading a lot of Bill Hooks. I've been reading this book, The Speed of Dreams,
Okay.
by Subcomandante Marcos, which is like just an amazing book about poetry and autonomy and the Zapatistas in Mexico. You're reading a lot of sci-fi?
Nah, I kind of stay in the pocket.
Oh, okay.
Like the last, let's see. The last book I finished was autobiography of a yogi.
Oh, okay.
Really good. And then right now I'm reading. I'm gonna fuck it up on camera. The Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like the actual I'm reading the book, and then I'm like simultaneously reading an interpretation of the book
Oh,
to
deep.
like get like a perspective as well as the information as it comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also been diving into, that's why I mentioned sci-fi is like
I have a good sci-fi one
into
for you.
portals.
Yeah.
Like, so one of the next column albums is called Pushing on Portals.
Mhm.
So we'll have different, like where we go through a portal,
Yeah.
and then me and Chavo, like even Chavo Awareness is rapping, and we're the Calm Boys, but we're rapping about pagers.
Dope.
Because this is before cell phones.
It's a different thing.
So we're time traveling, but we're making different beats.
That's tight.
So I've been reading like
That's
Octavia
a cool
Butler
concept.
and Philip K. Dick
Mhm.
and like those type of.
Did you know he's buried in Colorado?
Yeah, up in Longmont or
Wild.
Fort Morgan.
Fort Morgan.
Yep.
It's wild. That's wild to think that this is where they.
Yeah, and people put their library cards on his grave.
Yep.
It's super cool. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna give you a book recommendation since you're on the sci-fi thing. But before I do that, what book are you recommending to 16-year-old Time or a 16-year-old kid that's aspiring to live a creative life? What's that book?
What is I can't think of the name of the book right now.
It's all good.
It's the writer's
I'll-
journey or the writer's life. Let me.
what I'm gonna do is tell you recommend a book while you think
Okay,
about it.
Okay.
So this author, Marlon James, he's written 2 books. Both of them are incredible. One is The History of 7 Killings. And that book is dope because he basically takes the history of Jamaica and tells that story through folklore and like uses the dead people from the history of Jamaica to tell the story.
No
So
way.
there's a lot of facts in there, but obviously dead people can't talk. So like at one point, Bob Marley is in there as the singer and he's telling his truth. And a couple politicians that got murdered during, and they're telling their truth. And it speaks of like the CIA's involvement with the different political parties out there. And then it actually, the main guy that was involved with the shooting of Bob Marley, not the killing, but when he got shot, it takes that story and furthers it, because those guys went on to create the Shower Posse, right? Which is a Jamaican gang that lives and breathes right now. And the person that ghost in the book was based on, Dudas Coke. Oh wait, no, Dudas Coke's son. His son went on to run that drug empire till 2010, which eventually the American government took him out. But it does a really good job of like using folklore and ghosts to tell a really dope story.
Wow.
So that's
I'm gonna
dope.
check this out.
His name's Marlon James, and it's the history of 7 killings, I think.
Okay.
But then he has another 3 books he put out. The one that I read it's called Red Wolf. No. I think it might be Red Fox.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't think of the name. I'll show you the name after the thing. But this book is really dope because we've heard the like Harry Potter's and Lord of the Rings stories, that like mythical, but all of that comes from the European perspective, right? And what he does in this story is he takes the myths and legends and creatures from Africa and tells that mythical story of like fairies and wizards and just giants, you know what I mean? But it's all through the lens of African myth.
It smashes that Eurocentrism that we're always like inundated in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just tell like that. Those stories, like Lord of the Rings, they cover an era and a style of story, but there was a whole other continent that also has myths about fairies and legends about wizards, right? All of Africa has all those things as well, and he uses that filter to tell the story.
Nice.
Marlon James is the author. I can't.
Okay.
I'm
gonna check them out, man. That sounds great. Okay, so back to a suggestion for someone looking to create late teens. Okay.
Could be 50.
Okay.
Whatever. Like it's like the one chance, one shot.
Okay.
What book are you giving them?
I'm going with The Dispossessed by Ursula Le Guin.
The Dispossessed?
The Dispossessed. And
Okay.
This is a sci-fi book about like this utopia that these people are on, but then the more you look into it, you see the utopia is not so nice as it really is.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows you like this ambiguity of a utopia, and it really plays with Taoist themes.
Okay.
So and I think it's really important for creativity, because good creativity is believable when there's duality with it. It doesn't go too much one way or the other.
Yep.
And that's what makes a good character too. And someone that you just can't absolutely love or hate. You see the nuance. And it just shows you that there's these darker sides to it, and it shows you a lot about friendship, and it's really good. And if I had my second book, I'm gonna go with The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Alchemist is classic.
Just such a good book, just to get you thinking more about what really
possibility
gets you moving. Yeah, curiosity. He talks about the soul of the world, your soul, like the soul of different things, and it opens you up to creative possibilities.
Yeah, that's. I'll have to check out the one, and then The Alchemist is that's in heavy rotation, like probably every 3 years. I like to revisit books, and especially the ones that really informed me at certain moments in time. Like I like to revisit them a few years later to see if they still hold that same impact.
And you're a different person too. So
certain books I'll go back to. There's books I've gone back to 10, 15 times. Fortunately, we have Audible. They should be a sponsor because it makes consuming information a little more easy for people like me that are always moving around.
Oh, definitely, yeah. If you're an audio learner, it makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you coming out. I look forward to having many more of these with you. Like, I'd love to get you and Chavo on here.
Awesome, man.
Let's just have fun with it.
Cool.
Hell yeah, it's my guy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. Boom. There it is.
Awesome.